Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 0 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host, Travis McNeil, and today, as has become tradition whenever we launch a new season, this is the introductory video for Season 5. It's been a little bit since we wrapped Season 4, and Season 5, much like Season 4 with Lucha Underground, is one that kind of came, spontaneously to me. It wasn't something that I had planned, not something that I had in the works. I do have something that I keep putting on the back burner that I'm about halfway done for. So, we'll see that coming your way in early to mid 2022 instead. But this was very topical. So for Season 5, we are counting down the top 50 matches in NXT history. This, of course, was sparked by, the NXT as we know it, kind of dissolving and the launch of NXT 2.0. So, that got me thinking, what better time than the present to go back and rewatch, everything that came our way through, the quote-unquote original NXT. And there is so much quality content here. Believe it or not, whittling it down to a top 50 was actually a little bit challenging. The top of the list, as I started to watch this stuff, was really kind of set in stone for me. And, there was a good deviation, from 1 through 20 or so. But after that, it got a little tricky. And really that, number 50 cutoff was quite challenging. But, that'll be coming your way, within the next day or so. Realistically, though, I could have made a top 100 here. It's not like with Lucha Underground, where I had slightly more than 50 matches throughout, the entire series run. NXT, we've had so much good stuff. The story of NXT is really interesting. If you watch, Season 3, my ECW season, that I have a little bit of an affinity for, the WWE version of ECW on Sci-Fi. Specifically, that 2009 era of it. So NXT originally launched, out of the ashes of ECW on Sci-Fi. It was an incredibly bizarre show. It was sort of fun, train wreck TV. I remember, going on message boards and, talking about the episodes as they would air, each week and just being in awe of some of the weird stuff they were doing. You had, heel Michael Cole. You had, Daniel Bryan just being treated like garbage, despite being the best wrestler in the world. You had weird, immunity challenges and guys cutting unscripted promos and Matt Striker putting, wrestlers on the spot. And then when you went into the women's season, you had them being weirdly sexualized and, basically being, criticized on commentary that they weren't wrestlers. It was all really strange. At the time, you kind of watched it for what it was. With this countdown, I'm going to be upfront with you. Nothing, prior to the Full Sail University era of NXT is going to make this list. That's not to say I didn't watch it. I went back and, I cherry picked, what I thought would be remotely good or interesting. Nothing from that period holds up. You have the fun, Daniel Bryan match against Jericho on the debut. You have some good Tyson Kidd matches, in that really weird era of NXT where they kind of made it its own little side promotion, which is basically what it would end up becoming. But, it was using these main roster guys and, it was after it kind of finished its, game show sort of run and before it, eventually became, what we knew it to be as it came from Florida Championship Wrestling. NXT was really interesting. When it started, it had this FCW vibe to it. If you've never watched FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, I don't know how accessible it is to find that stuff now. It aired on, I want to say like the Sunshine Network in Florida. If you were in the tape trading community in the time, we would trade, DVDs with FCW television episodes. You might have been able to find the links online. I don't know how much of it is still out there. Some of it has gotten commercial releases through WWE DVDs. There's a lot of good stuff there with the members of the Shield. Dean Ambrose had some phenomenal matches with William Regal. Seth Rollins and Dean had some great matches there. You got, guys like Johnny Curtis and Justin Gabriel, PJ Black, whatever you want to call him, Justin Angel at the time. You kind of had the start of all of these guys that would come up through, developmental, Tyson Kidd, was there. You'd also have, the early indie guys that WWE was, signing. You got some really, quick Daniel Bryan appearances. You had Low Key in there as Cabal. It was really interesting. It was definitely developmental TV. Not everything worked, but it's kind of fun, especially to go back and look at it now. So I recommend that. But when FCW kind of closed up shop and became NXT, the first year or so of it really did have that developmental feel. But it was really, late 2003 into late 2013 into early 2014 that really changed it and basically made it, WWE's version of, an indie promotion or WWE's version of Ring of Honor. And it really worked. And it's funny because, one day this will be a really well documented time period in wrestling. Because living through it, it was so exciting. You'd have the WWE signing, all of this big name indie talent, and then being put in this awesome bubble because before, in the rare instance that they would sign somebody, maybe they'd make it through developmental to the main roster. And if they did, outside of a few exceptions like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, really, you'd have these guys like Cabal or whomever that would kind of be brought up and just sort of fizzle out and end up back on the independents. But this was kind of this bubble atmosphere where they could be allowed to be themselves and work that indie style. But it had this awesome appeal because it was a WWE produced product. So you were, outside of the Full Sail environment, they were getting these takeover events in these big arenas with these big hot crowds. And, you'd get all of the WWE production values and the music and the video packages and, the pyro and everything like that. And it was really cool and it was really unique to see, these matches that you would love from Ring of Honor and Evolve and PWG and all the indies at the time, get this big platform. And as a, a wrestling fan, an independent wrestling fan, it felt kind of rewarding to see these guys, get this exposure and get this break. But then over time, we would start to see where it would kind of become problematic. And no better than that than the last year of NXT 1.0's, life cycle, where you can see all of this hoarding of talent and these guys getting signed and then released and having to uproot themselves to move to Florida and WWE having nothing to do with them and, all of the bad habits from WWE programming that, independent wrestling fans would often criticize, really shining through. So, it was an interesting ride. It was a fun ride. The biggest thing that I think, NXT really gave the WWE roster was the shot in the arm to the women's division. WWE never took women's wrestling seriously. They finally did, with NXT kind of coming out, from there with, the Four Horsewomen. So that was really good to see. And it's something that, thankfully, WWE going forward, presents their women's division a lot better. So that's something to certainly thank NXT from. It brought, a more physical style to WWE wrestling. And as those NXT guys get called up, you really start to see that shine through. So it's, it's not without its positives, but, there were a lot of negatives as well. But, one thing that we can't, understate is the quality of the in-ring action. There's so much good stuff here. Watching it back, I'm so excited to go through it all with you for the top 50 countdown. You are going to see, the matches that you expect to see on this list. There may be some, omissions of matches that I don't like as much as you, or I feel don't hold up as well as they did at the time, but that's what makes these so much fun. And you will see a whole boatload of hidden gems, under the radar matches that maybe you've never seen or that you've forgotten about, that watching now in 2021 just completely blew me away. And I especially can't wait to go through those ones with you. So if you are an NXT fan, if you're a WWE fan, if you're an independent wrestling fan, if you just love pro wrestling, I hope that you stick through with this season. The release calendar is going to be a little different. I'm expecting there to be bigger blocks, as we go through the holiday season, where I might drop, several episodes all at once. But please, as always, let me know what you think in the comments of the videos. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me tomorrow as we begin our new countdown of Pro Wrestling's Top 50.